like most coffee beers, I am
Yeah.
definitely in on.
Yeah. So it's Dark Horse, right? And it's a winter seasonal, but it's a Doppelbock. But it just tastes like a kind of dark coffee beer. Okay, I'm ready.
Let's go.
Doppelbocks are the people who impersonate pianists.
While doppelgangers are person who impersonate gang members.
Yes, exactly.
So what are we for impersonating entertainers?
Doppelcasters.
Doppelcasters.
Welcome to 3Play, where three friends play podcasting about games, and we're just one short of a good time. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about unpopular opinions, but first, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Brean Hunt, aka Eclecticalish.
I am Jordan Gill, a.k.a. Buckeye734.
I'm Billy, last name redacted, and handle redacted.
Wow.
Also, I have a question.
Okay.
What do you guys look at when we record? Do you look at yourself most? Do you look at the others of us? Do you look
I think
at
I'm
the
looking
camera?
at you and Brean the most.
When
Yeah,
I'm talking,
okay.
I try to look at the camera, and when you guys are talking, I look at you on the screen.
I never look at the camera.
That I think is the correct thing. I think I'm pretty much just staring at myself the whole podcast. I'm just drawn. I'm a narcissist. So that's the problem.
You are a very handsome man, so I understand staring at yourself all the time, because that's what I do.
I appreciate that lie.
Jordan,
but we are gonna be telling
I will
the
stop
truth
looking
tonight.
at the camera now.
Just trying it out. I'm just trying to see what it's
do
like.
it. Do it the whole night. Do it the whole night. If you stare at the camera the whole podcast without taking your eyes off it, I will automatically agree with whatever you say.
It's gonna be
for
really
our
hard
topic
for me.
tonight.
It's gonna be really hard for me to look at my notes though if I'm staring at the camera the whole time.
I'm sorry.
I don't think I can do that.
Okay.
For those
Then
of
I
you
can't wait to disagree with you.
For those of you who are listening to this, you can go and look at the weird faces we're making over on our YouTube by the same name, 3Play YouTube. What
Is that right?
3Play
It's probably
podcast
close.
YouTubes?
We have a lot of social media, and Google loves us. DuckDuckGo wants us, craves us.
Needs us, really.
Oh, needs us for sure. I mean, they've got an uphill battle, but I do support DuckDuckGo.
Ask Jeeves. I mean, he has asked several times to be our butler.
Does that still exist?
Oh, yeah.
Website?
I'm pretty sure it does, but I must know.
I think it basically just runs one of the other
Hang
search
on.
engines.
Let
at
me
this
Google Ask Jeeves.
point. Yeah. I think at this point Ask just runs another
Sure.
search engine
It's just a
more
skin
built
for
up.
something else.
Yep.
For Bing.
It is still
for
a thing.
Bing. for Bing.
Bing.
What?
Unlimited resources, right? Like practically unlimited resources. And you come up with Bing. What are they doing? Who's paid for that?
Well, I think it's
name their
probably an
search engine
attempt.
Bing.
I think it's probably an attempt to. I mean, when the way Google became a verb, right? You need a short word like that so that people can say,
Yes.
"Oh, hey, did you Bing? You could Bing this, right?" Which sounds so stupid.
Yes, it does sound so stupid.
In theory, Google also sounds stupid.
Yes, it does. And it's sort of just become nomenclature at this point. So, but Bing is only a vowel away from some other verbs that I don't think you'd want to be mistaken for.
Bung.
Yes, Jordan, that's what I was thinking of.
I mean, bong would have been pretty good.
Yes.
Did you bong that?
Bing with an E. Bang.
Hang on, let me bong that real quick.
Let me bang it. Bang it. Anyway.
That can get you in trouble.
You just see, if we had been in that meeting, we would have laughed this marketing team out of the office. What's your problem?
that plays into my theory where like the larger corporations take less and less risks and they end up making dumber and dumber decisions because they're not willing to like take these risks.
But when you have more to lose, right?
Sure, like I understand the logic there why they do that, but like I also think that as a larger company you need to try and counter that in some ways to be like, no, we need to take some risks and here are ways that we're going to encourage that.
Yes, and I think that like Microsoft in that situation when they created Bing didn't have more to lose. Like they had 0 market share of like search engines. Mm-hmm. So like why not take a risk and try to make the next like Google?
What do you think they should have named it?
No, I was going to ask you guys. Yeah, like what? I don't know. Boogle.
If you were going to
Yeah.
Guys,
it's really close on the keyboard. It's close on the keyboard to the G. Or right, like Google has the G twice, so I think you would just want to replicate that. So no,
I think I'm not gonna. I was gonna go look and see if that was a real thing.
No,
I'm not going to because I have a feeling it probably is a real thing, and we don't want to. We don't want to do that.
I'm gonna do it. I'll do it.
Oh, I await in bated breath.
Oh yeah, it's okay. It's what we thought. It's what you thought it would be. Don't do it, listeners. Don't do it. We can't do that rating. Just censor that. Censor it right there too. What are we talking about tonight?
All of that's just going to be bleep. You know what they should have named it? Beep. Beep. So it's interesting that you bring up that companies should take risks, though, right? Because I think video game companies in particular are probably the most guilty of what you're talking about right now in not taking risks.
Yeah, I would agree, and maybe that's a good discussion point then for the games we bring up here, because I'm surprised by some of the ratings here. For our listeners, what we've decided to do today is each pick 3 games, and we're going to name the games, and we're also going to name 3 scores given to them on Metacritic, their critic scores, and we might talk about their user scores as well. But specifically, we're giving each other the Metacritic scores, and we'll try and match up the name of the games to the scores we think they got out of those 3.
All right, so the 3 games I brought are all 3 Game of the Year award winners from the Game Awards. So this is going back to 2015, and so I'm only going to pick 3 of them. So the years that I picked were 2015, 2017, and 2018, and here are the 3 games. They are...
I know what 2017 is.
They are The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt.
Uh-huh.
They are The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and 2018 was God of War. Yeah. And the scores that I'm going to read to you in a random order, the scores are, in order from least to greatest, 93, 94, and 97.
I know one of these. I think I got it.
But I think he has it.
I'll let Brean sort his out.
I mean, I'm just kind of guessing.
All right.
Go ahead.
Breath of the Wild, 97. No questions asked. God of War is 94, and Wild Hunt is 93.
Any disagreement there, Brean?
No, I wasn't sure. Breath of the Wild, I was pretty sure was top. The other 2, I think I've not played either of them, and I feel like God of War probably had a better acceptance rating, so I would probably put them in that same order, God of War and then Witcher.
You both are correct.
Yes.
Breath of the Wild with a critic score of 97, God of War with a critic score of 94, and The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt with a critic score of 93. Now, interestingly, I also looked up the user scores for these.
Yeah.
And the user scores are in the exact opposite order. The Witcher 3 has the highest user score at 9.3. God of War comes next with 9.2, and Breath of the Wild with a user score of 8.7.
8.7?
Yes.
Really?
So I found that very interesting that the user kind of flipped the order on those three. I didn't go in intentionally like looking for that, but that was like a kind of a weird thing that popped out of there. Just critics.
That's interesting that Breath of the Wild is so low. I mean, right, like 8 point, what'd you say, 8.7?
8.7, yep.
Right, I mean, that's not particularly low. That just, I wonder what people's
It's still, I think that still represents a good game, right?
Oh, certainly, yeah. Certainly.
You know what
I
I
just
mean?
am curious what those scores bringing it down were.
Yeah.
Playing.
I didn't
I
really
assume
makes
like
me-
weapon durability would be my big...
Yeah, that is kind of an annoying thing in the game. But the
It is an annoying thing in the game. It's really annoying.
Get over it. Yeah, I know where this is going, Jordan.
we'll save that. We'll
Too
save
soon.
that conversation.
It's too soon. Save it.
Yeah, it makes me wonder the psychology of the people who are going to that website to put in a rating for a game.
Yes.
And you got to think they're on one side or the other. Like people who are middle of the ground on a game are not going to Metacritic to like put in what their opinion is unless they just enjoy critiquing games and maybe they'll do that. But like that's got to be a small subset of those people.
Yeah.
And one of the games that I was thinking about bringing was The Last of Us Part 2, which won in 2020, which has a critic score of 93, but has a user score of 5.7.
That's nuts.
And it's mostly due to the controversies that surround that game, right? There's a couple of them, so there are a couple different reasons that people get on that game and just drop the score, right? But it makes you kind of wonder, wait, who do I trust here? Do I trust the critics or do I trust the users? Like what do I find to be the more reliable score? Anyway,
well, I don't trust anybody. I want to clarify that Metacritic I think is super imperfect for a lot of reasons you just discussed.
Sure.
But like whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Whatever
like, there's a
Metacritic.
lot of things that make games sort of subjective as far as like who likes them, who doesn't, the type of game that you like, and a lot of content that you may or may not find offensive, or whatever. There's a lot of factors in that, I'm sure. That any scoring rubric is gonna fail in some way, right?
by the way, one more little tidbit, because I looked up all of the Game of the Year awards. The lowest scoring Game of the Year is 2019's Sekiro with a critic score of 8.8, which is lower than It Takes Two, which has a score of 89, which actually really surprised me.
I've heard only glowing things about It Takes Two. I'm excited to play that someday.
Yeah.
But we also know that like 2019 was sort of a down year for Game of the Year.
Well, so was 2021.
Yes, but also not to take away from the masterpiece that is Sekiro.
Yeah, it's still what 8 point? You said 8.9 or 8.8?
Yeah, 88. And it's weird. I just noticed the Metascore does the critic score out of 100 and the user score out of 10. So I'm not sure what the difference is there.
Maybe
for
it's
that,
just so that you can't confuse the two.
That's true. Good differentiation.
Brean, you mentioned this idea of like subjectivity and preference, and I think that works really well to transition to mine. I'm not giving you all the scores.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that afterwards. We'll just try a couple different things.
we'll just see where the podcast leads us.
I chose games only on the Nintendo Switch. So I chose games on the Nintendo Switch. These are the Switch versions of the games because some of these games are found elsewhere. I think maybe all three of them are found elsewhere. Like generally games are on PC and whatever. So I'm going to give you these three games, and I want you to just give me like a ballpark of the Metacritic score, where you think it falls in terms of ranking.
Hit me.
Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon on Nintendo Switch.
And I assume Pocket Dungeon is not Shovel Knight. It's like a different game.
No, it's Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon.
Shovel Knight
Yes.
Pocket Dungeon.
Yes. It just came out, I think, very recently. I really love
I'm gonna
seeing...
guess 82.
No, wait. I'm going to give you all three.
Oh,
Let me give you all three.
All right.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment on Jordan's face. And if you rewind, you'll see Jordan's face when I say Shovel Knight. He's like, yeah, Shovel Knight. And then when I say Pocket Dungeon, he's like, oh my god. So that was fantastic. You can see that. Go back, record it. It's there.
Yeah, check out our YouTube.
Okay, so Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon. Next game on Nintendo Switch, Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator. Actually, all of my games have colons. It's fantastic.
I bet that one's got a couple colons.
Nope. Just one. I don't know what you're saying there.
I'll explain it to you after the podcast.
Face value. Number 3 is, coincidentally, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition. So this, definitive,
are these all
whatever.
in the same ballpark?
What's that?
Are these all in the same ballpark, or am I differentiating these? Because I would definitely put The Witcher 3 Complete Edition higher than those other 2 games that you mentioned.
You tell me, Jordan. You tell me.
This is the Switch versions, right?
Yes. So this came out several years after, right?
Yeah.
But I will tell you, since Brean, you may not even have like a ballpark for this. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt surprisingly runs really well on the Switch.
There's definitely a giant graphical downgrade.
Yes, graphically it is clearly
not even close.
Scaled down, but it isn't like a double compromise where it's graphically garbage and
doesn't
poorly run. It runs really well and is like fun to play on the Switch.
Okay. That I was gonna downgrade it automatically because I was assuming
it is.
That was what it is
is
because I've seen other ports do that.
My guess is the reason Billy's bringing up all these games is probably because they're all at like I'm thinking like 7.5 to 8.5, like in that like high 7, low 8 range for all 3 of these.
I will tell you the scores for these. I'll tell you the scores now. In no particular order. The scores are 88, 85, and 84.
So I was a little. I undershot by a little.
Yes, but they're all within a few points.
That's unbelievable.
I'll tell you the funniest order. And I'll assume that you picked these because they were in the funniest order.
You read them like a book, Brean.
So it's got to be, what was it? Daddy Dating Simulator?
88 is the highest score, and yes, it's Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator.
Yep. Dream Daddy first, then Shovel Knight, then Witcher. That's my guess.
Do you want to add anything?
No, I just want to be put out of my misery on this.
On? All right, so in last place is Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon with 84, a user rating of 8.3.
Okay.
So very close. In second place, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition with 85 critic score.
This is with like award-winning DLC attached.
All wrapped in definitive edition. So the critic score is 85. User rating is 8.6. Again, 0.1 difference. That's impressive. And then I need your take on this because I don't understand how to deal with this. Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator, received 88 from the critic rating. User rating is 7.3. And I don't really know, like, maybe that's bombed by users who are, like, homophobic or something. Like, I don't know. And maybe just we need to go look at, like, some articles or something.
Specifically the
Switch version.
Because I'm looking here, I just looked it up on Steam, and the Metacritic score is 72. So that's more in line with the user rating.
So maybe it's just less played on the Switch. I bet what it is people who loved it on Steam tend to right. If you love something on Steam, you probably rebuy it if it comes out on Switch later. I think maybe that happened with this. So the people who loved it bought it for Switch and then rated it on Metacritic.
That would make
sense. But that's critics. No, it's critics. It's critics is 88. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway,
I thought that was fun. Rated it. I don't know.
I just can't believe we live in the day and age where Dream Daddy Dating Simulator is a game available on your Nintendo Switch.
Yes, please get the name correct out of respect. Okay. Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator.
Dream Daddy, :
Yeah.
A dad.
Emphasize the colon.
A dad dating simulator.
Some of these dads
But
are
also-
pretty spicy looking.
Yes.
Craig is.
I saw
Craig
the
is a
one
babe.
with the baby carrier, right?
Oh yeah,
He's a man who
It's
takes
my-
care of his family.
It's my kind of dad.
I think his wife probably died tragically. I also want to emphasize...
I mean, you're not wrong.
What?
Nothing.
This is what makes... Right, it's not like...
Yeah.
In this situation, like, you're not going to fall in love with this character who's like, yeah, I divorced my wife because I cheated on her with this woman named, like, Charlene from The Office, but I'm taking care of my kid because she wants nothing to do with it. It's like, no, my wife died tragically. She was ill, and I stuck with her till the end, and it's been long enough that this is okay, but short enough that, like, it's still a little fresh, and I'm dealing with it, and you're going to help me work through it. Like, that's what's going on there.
Brean, I just want to hear at this point what games you have.
Okay. Yep, we can move on.
All right. We've
I
made
chose
Jordan
3
uncomfortable
very
enough.
different
Perfect.
games.
Perfect.
Chose 3 very different games.
Yeah, so I, as usual, picked games that I am vaguely familiar with that neither of you are going to be.
Excellent.
So
I
you
love
just have to guess on these.
All
So
right.
in no particular order, the games are Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix. It's a rhythm game. I'm happy to read the descriptions of these as
Nope,
well.
I got it. Rhythm
I
Heaven.
know it. I know it.
Okay.
I can feel
then, Siesta Fiesta.
What genre is Siesta Fiesta in?
It's a puzzle game.
It's like, do you know this one?
What
No,
did
I
you say
guessed,
it was?
and I got it right.
Well, it's kind of a puzzle game, like sort of a like you're bouncing. Well, let me read you the description because the description is incredible. Siesta Fiesta is a colorful action game where players take control of the snoozing Siesta as he's taken on a one-of-a-kind tour of Fiestaville, home to the beloved Fiestas. Use Siesta's bed to bounce, boost, and rebound across the island. 8 fun-filled regions. So basically, like, you play as the bed, and you're, like, bouncing this guy who's sleeping the whole time through
Got
the
it.
air to, like, pick up stuff and
Got it.
As you
bounce
move
off
through
of-
like a side-scrolling level.
And he's sleeping the whole time.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And you're trying not to, like, drop him and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's a solid 6.3.
And then
Guess.
Sonic Lost World is the last one. And I can
There's
give you
so
the
many Sonic
scores
games,
now if
and
you
I
want.
don't
Yeah,
remember
which
ones people hate and which ones people love.
So Rhythm Heaven, Siesta Fiesta, and Sonic Lost World.
Gosh.
And then,
I gotta think Brian's going along the same lines as you, Billy, and giving us. I'm going. Rhythm Heaven is the top here,
Yeah.
followed by Siesta Fiesta, followed by Sonic Lost World.
I'll switch Siesta Fiesta just because that sounds like being put into an Iron Maiden. I don't know.
Is that a good thing?
No. That's like one of those coffins.
I know
with
what it
spikes
is.
in
I know what an Iron Maiden is. Yeah.
You were just assuming my quirks,
exactly.
my preferences. So we both say rhythm game number 1, and then I say Sonic Siesta. You say Siesta Sonic.
Correct.
Jordan is correct. It is Rhythm Heaven at 83, then Siesta Fiesta at 81, and then Sonic Lost World at 59.
Poor Sonic. Just can't catch
So
a break, man.
is a not beloved Sonic game.
And the
'Cause
user
some of the
scores
Sonic-
put them in almost exactly the same
Yeah.
Interesting.
order.
So,
Actually,
so
exactly
in that
the same
one,
order.
and that one, there's alignment between the critics and the fan bases.
That's fantastic. Good for them. I don't know, like, 3D Sonic games have just sort of generally sucked, right?
I think
Like,
the original Sonic Adventure still holds a lot of like a special place for a lot of people.
Sure.
But it's never like at the same time, right? You have Sonic Adventure competing against, Super Mario 64, right? When those things come out, right? So, I think that's tough. Even though the Dreamcast may have been after the 64. I'm mistaken that. I can't remember when the Dreamcast came out.
I think Dreamcast came out after.
Yeah, Dreamcast was sort of in between.
It was kind of like the
64
in between PS1, PS2, right? In between there.
Yeah. Let's do our hot takes. I want to hear us complain about stuff that people don't care about. And then we get mad at each other.
Sounds great.
Well,
that's really what I'm hoping for here.
So I think I'll go first, since I don't think my hot take is really going to make either of you upset at all. So I think you'll probably agree.
You underestimate my power.
That's true. So my unpopular gaming opinion is that I know a few gamers, quote unquote, because I don't consider them gamers. I would say there's kind of this new breed of jock, what we would call in my day jock, where the only games that these people play are just Call of Duty or either what's that type of game called? I'm trying to remember the type of game that like
an annualized
PUBG or
that's like an arena
battle royale,
yeah, or a battle royale game, or like a sports game, and that's their repertoire of games, and that's it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, in order to be considered an actual gamer, you need to play something that's outside of that realm, that's story based versus just that. Otherwise, you're just kind of the video game equivalent of a jock.
This is the worst take I've ever heard. Yeah. This is the worst take I've ever heard.
This is actually right. Like this is.
I want everyone to know he is gatekeeping gamers right now.
I think you're gatekeeping a little bit.
You're saying here's the gamer identity. You over there with your sports games and your battle royales, you go over there.
How dare you?
You're just disguised jocks.
I mean, essentially, yeah.
And I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I think there is a truth to what you're saying, in that those types of games generally attract people who might not be your typical gamer, right? Mm-hmm. Or what you would consider to be a typical gamer. But so you think does that make them less?
Well, I don't think it makes them less of a person, if that's what you mean. I think they're
kind of sounds like that's what you're saying. It kind of sounds like that's what you're saying.
No, not at all. I'm saying that like games are so much beyond that, and you haven't actually stepped into the full like gaming realm if you haven't, like, it'd be the difference between reading a like Amelia Bedelia book as a child and saying I'm an avid reader of like high literature versus someone who actually like reads high literature.
But we're not saying I'm like these people who play games aren't saying I play intense depth narrative, right? They're just saying like, no, I play games. What games do you play? Well, I play these games. I was like, okay, you play those games. That's fine. I don't like those games. I think they're lame. So like, because of with your reading metaphor or example, if my students come to me and say like, hey, I've been reading Mr. Stone, I say that's great. That's fantastic. Like, what are you reading? They're like, Amelia Bedelia. I'm like, great. Like, you're doing this thing. You're participating in this thing. I think it's stupid. I'm not going to say that to them, but I think that. I think that that's stupid. I'm just happy that they're like participating in it, hoping maybe someday they graduate from Call of Duty into Chrono Trigger or...
Sure.
I mean, hopefully not like... Final Fantasy VII. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
If I was talking directly to one of these people, obviously sure. I would not be like, you're not a real gamer.
suck.
Like, I'd be like, oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
But like,
because they could beat us
I guess
up
what I'm saying
they're
is
so strong and big.
right, exactly. And they beat me up and take my lunch money. No, but what I am railing against mostly is I have seen those types of gamers tout themselves to be like, I'm the best gamer ever. There's like some particular ones. I don't want to like call out particular people, but
well,
like,
right,
Why?
but I
Nobody's
think that's
watching this. Nobody's going to hear this.
I think that's its own subculture, right? In that it's like when people say it that way, like I think there's a difference between gamer and gamer, right? Because what you're saying is I'm the best gamer because I'm the best at this competitive multiplayer shooter, right? And I think that very much goes hand in hand with the like competitive gaming side of things.
true.
Whereas there is like what you're saying is I play games for the story, or I play for this single player rich experience or story that is being told, right? But I don't know, man. Games for me are for fun, and are we saying who's allowed to have fun?
Sure. No, I mean, that is fair. I think you hit the nail on the head with kind of this distinction between the two meanings of gamer. And I think that is ultimately my objection, is that I think there is a difference between being a competitive player in something and that being your definition of fun and so forth. And I think where my mind goes to immediately when you say gamer is someone who enjoys experiencing like kind of this vast array of types of games or types of gaming experiences or stories in games. Like that to me is what the word gamer evokes, not someone who is like only playing a competitive game for competitive game's sake. But I do see that is an aspect of gaming, and so I think it's just my initial reaction to the definition of that gamer
Tag.
classification
Name.
And, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I will be
think
honest, Brean. I'll be honest. Like when I think of the label gamer, that makes me think. My mind more quickly goes to competitive, like battle royale sports games. I don't know why that is. Like what? Like if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm a gamer," like I'm gonna think like, "Oh yeah, okay, you play like PUBG or you are playing like League of Legends." Like,
well, maybe that's because
your identity is more wrapped up in this thing because you have like one or two games that you pour your life into.
Sure.
Is that
like,
due to youths?
Yeah, no,
Right.
Yes, I'm not saying that like my perception is right. I think maybe I'm an idiot, and this is just like where my brain goes.
Well, I think when you think about who's going to say that, who's going to say I'm a gamer,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
The only people I think who would say that is someone who's young. I think us who are in our
I don't think I would
twilight years of gaming, right?
Yeah,
we have a lot of other self-identity, you know, ways to define ourselves besides just I'm a gamer. So
yeah, because I don't think I would say that. I think if you're like, hey, what kinds of things are you? I'd say like, oh, well, like like playing video games is coming into that. Like it's a huge part of my life. But I would struggle to say the sentence I am a gamer.
Sure.
Even though I am, according to maybe like the general definition of it.
Tough but fair.
Tough but fair.
Tough but fair.
All right, who'd you like to move to next? Do you want me to go?
Sure.
All right.
You want to
So,
go. You've been waiting for this.
I've been waiting. And,
You got something you want to get off your chest there?
I have something I really need to say. And it's true. It's absolutely true.
It's objectively true. It is an absolute truth of the universe.
We talked about this game earlier tonight. Breath of the Wild. It has a critic score of 97. It has a user score of 8.7. And I'm here to tell the world that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is massively overrated.
That's amazing. That's just
massively.
Amazing. It's just amazing. What you're saying is amazing. And I feel enlightened.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'm here to educate you. And so
about being a real gamer.
About being a real gamer.
Why are so many people having fun with this game? Why do so many people love it and enjoy it? You're wrong.
Stop having fun.
Wrong.
No, but here's the thing. The reason it's a good game. I don't want to come off saying that Breath of the Wild is a bad game because that's ludicrous. I can't say that. But if you take the name The Legend of Zelda off of Breath of the Wild, that becomes a game that lands in the pile of all the other games. It may have a good score on Metacritic, right? You might have a nice 85, but you are not getting the universal acclaim. You are not getting the #1 rated game of all time on IGN if you do not have the name The Legend of Zelda attached to that game.
So you're saying that the game is being carried by its
affiliation with this Legend of Zelda franchise. Correct.
Like recent Star Wars films. I hear you.
Right, and that is my issue with Breath of the Wild. And again, it's a good game, right? There's a good game, but there are things I feel like Breath of the Wild fails at, and things that Breath of the Wild does not do well, right? The first thing that comes to my mind is like, the boss fights in the game are so forgettable, right? For me, every boss fight in that game is bleh.
What about Lightning Blight or Thunder Blight Ganon? That's the best one in the game.
Is that like the
super?
I can't even tell you who Thunderblight Ganon was, right?
That's fine.
So
that's fine.
That may speak to that, right? And there is I feel like the game is like there's so much premise, like there's so much setup for things to be good. When I first started cooking food, I was so excited. I was like, oh, I'm going to cook all these wonderful dishes, right? Yeah. But then eventually you get into it for a while and you realize, oh, I'm just making the same item, but it's just giving me more hearts than it used to, right? Yeah. So what, like, and the other thing that pops to my mind is like climbing the towers, right? The first time you climb a tower, it's like really, really hard to even get up the tower, right? Mm-hmm. But that becomes like not a thing later. Like it's not really that much of a challenge to get up the towers later in the game. So it's like when I start out playing Breath of the Wild, I'm all like very, very excited about all these possibilities, right? But then I feel like nothing ever deepens for me in Breath of the Wild. So I think Breath of the Wild is a good game, but I think you take the name The Legend of Zelda off of that game and it doesn't receive the same universal acclaim that other games might.
Well, I have some arguments against, and I have some arguments for you. I have them both. So my arguments against would be
all of them are wrong.
Whether you
even the
agree
ones
with
that
them or
support
not.
Me. I can't think of another open world game like that for a Nintendo system prior to Breath of the Wild.
That means nothing to me.
Well, so here's my argument. Because the group of people who are like probably mostly playing Nintendo games on Nintendo systems, this is a new experience for them. It wasn't new in the realm of like PC. PC has done like these big open worlds and so forth before, but in the realm of playing on a Nintendo console, this was new and groundbreaking for Nintendo games. So I would say that is worth something to the community to say, sure, this has been done before in other realms, but this is now our time to actually have a game like this that we can play.
But does that justify making it the greatest game of all time?
Well, I don't think Brean was opening with his like, hey, here's why it's the greatest game of all time. I think he's going to lay out a couple of reasons why.
But Brean's argument there is that, okay, this is a good game, right? And it is a good game.
Yeah.
But the part of that I'm saying is that it is an overrated game. It is overly celebrated.
Well, and here's where I think the Metacritic scores probably break down a bit, is because it's only available on Nintendo systems. Mm-hmm. So it's only being rated for those systems. If it was also available on PC, it would be rated against all of these other ones as well. And I don't think it would have as high of a score as it does.
I want to go to Billy, because Billy thinks Breath of... Okay, go
No, I want to hear what Brean has to say.
I have one thing for your argument now as well.
Okay, go ahead.
So as I'm playing Breath of the Wild, because I'm actually playing it currently,
Okay.
everything I'm doing, I am saying to myself, Genshin Impact does this better. Every single thing in the game that I'm playing.
Yeah.
Now, Genshin Impact came out after, so I think it has opportunity to fix it. It also, the entire purpose of Genshin Impact is to continually be adding and refining. So it has had a lot more time to develop itself beyond Breath of the Wild. But everything that I do in Breath of the Wild, I'm like, I wish I was playing Genshin Impact right now, because it would do this element better. So
Genshin Impact is Breath of the Wild 1.5.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yes. Yeah. So that's my argument for and against Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
I want to hear what Billy has to say. Because
Yeah. I mean, Jordan, I think you can get into Breath of the Wild and you can like complain about shit, right? I think you can say
yes, you can.
Yes, I think you can say that like the weapon break system is so frustrating at times, because you're like, oh, look at this awesome shield I got, and then you're like surfing down a mountain with it, and it like explodes into 1,000 pieces, and you just go like ragdolling down the mountain and die. Like the weapon breaking system, I think, is probably the most like controversial gameplay mechanic.
Yeah, but I don't have a problem with it. That's not my problem.
No, and I don't have a problem with it either. But I'm saying that like even I have things like I can complain about, like, well, like I really wish there was a way for me to like keep some weapons or so. But I think like the beauty of that system is that if it weren't for the weapon break system, I would use like 2 things in the game, and I would never try these other weapons, or never have these moments where it's like, oh crap, I'm fighting this Lionel and my like best sword just broke, and now I have to like fight it with a boomerang and a freeze rod, and I'm screwed. So like that's why I would say like what they were going for with the breakage system. I think, and I don't really know how to like verbalize this, I think why Breath of the Wild really like captured people's hearts, to use like a cheesy cliche, is because it presents you with a lot of different problems, and whatever solution you want to bring to that problem, the answer is yes, that is a solution. So some examples.
It's a better Scribblenauts, is what you're saying.
Yes, it is like I've never played Scribblenauts, but sure. Right, because you talked about like, oh, you get towards the end of the game and it's just like so easy to like, you know, you use your flying power up, Ravioli's Gale, and you like soar through the air and you just like climb all the towers right away, right? Like, oh, this isn't as like magnificent as that those first couple towers I climbed. Or like now I have fast travel, so like I don't even need to explore this landscape because I can just boop to the next nearest place. Mm-hmm. But I think what is really like beautiful about Breath of the Wild, and what was wonderful, is that you kind of get to like choose what you want to do. And if you're like, oh, I just want to like Ravioli Gale up to the top of every tower and it's easy because I just want to get these towers, like, great. Or if you're like, no, I want to slog through this, I want to climb up, I want to like set up stasis, bomb this tree, launch myself through the air. So like, I think the game says yes to every answer. Like, you give an answer to the game's question and like it always works, or you can always make it work.
You are giving me reasons why Breath of the Wild is a good game. Is Breath of the Wild the best game of all time?
I don't know what I would put above it. And I get that like some of that is subjectivity, but like I don't know what I would put above it. If we're like, hey, go to an island with one game for the rest of your life. Sure,
I think
I'd
part
take Breath of
part of the love for Breath of the Wild comes from the fact that they are doing something different than The Legend of Zelda has done, right?
Sure.
But it's not different than a lot of other games have done. It's kind of to Brean's point in that, hey, it's to this Nintendo system, right? It's to this Nintendo community, right? Here's Legend of Zelda, but it's Legend of Zelda with a twist, right? And I don't think that what that game did, if you didn't have Legend of Zelda attached at the beginning,
Sure.
I don't believe it has the love and acclaim that is there for it today.
Yeah, I don't know, right? Like that's a world we don't live in. So like I don't know, right? Like I think, but like I would also say like, well, what's wrong with putting, like, why can't that add to the game to have like this
You're
world
right.
and this narrative
And it
and this lore like attached to it to like make it better? Like, oh, you have a really cool game, like idea, mechanic, concept, like gameplay. Let's make that a part of like this narrative of this like world. So like, right, like all games stand on the shoulders of the games that come before them. It's just Nintendo has Legend of Zelda, so they had an idea and they married it to this world they already have. So I don't know that that's necessarily a problem. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying sure, you take Legend of Zelda off and you lose some of that power, but I also don't know that like, well, like it doesn't matter because Legend of Zelda is attached to that game, so that's what it is.
I will
Right?
say, if I knew nothing about Legend of Zelda walking into it, the characters and the story are not super gripping to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's kind of
Some
Well,
so far. It's
and
kind
honestly, my argument is like kind of what Brean said too. He's like, oh, this open world thing has never been done, and I think it has been
Sure.
better in previous Legend of Zelda games. Link to the Past is the one that jumps to my mind immediately.
Sure.
Some previous Legend of Zelda games have given you these open worlds where, hey, go wherever the heck you want until you find the item that you need to progress, even further. So to me, and even on the Switch, right, Billy, one of your arguments is that Legend of Zelda says, yes, hey, you can do this, right? Mm-hmm. I honestly think Super Mario Odyssey does that just as well, if not better, giving you this, hey, you're in this world, look around these corners, and, oh, hey, look, there's something here for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, right, I don't want to, like, I think what's really fun, I'm on the, like, subreddit for Breath of the Wild, and it's like every couple weeks somebody's like, hey, I found a brand new thing you can do in Breath of the Wild, right? And, like, at this point, it's, like, glitches and, like, game-breaking stuff, and it's, like, sometimes minor and sometimes hilariously wild. So I just think, like, that would be the difference with, like, Mario Odyssey. Like, yeah, Mario Odyssey, masterpiece, right? Like, fantastic game. But it's like eating really good small meals, right? Because it's all these, like, small levels.
Sure.
And you're, like, hopping from level to level. Man, they need to come out with Odyssey, too. Because with Odyssey, it just felt like they introduced so many awesome things. And, like, they introduced it, and then you're moving on. And then they introduced it, and then you're moving on. Like, no! I want to be a tree longer. Anyway, Jordan, I don't know that I can, like, disagree with you, but I think you're making, like, perfectly valid points. But I think if I'm going to a desert island at this point, I don't know what game I bring besides Breath of the Wild. What game do you bring, Jordan?
Daddy Dating Simulator.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's tough, but fair.
Tough but fair. Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator. It's actually our sponsor for this week is the developers of Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator.
Man, that'd be cool.
of.
If you're listening, if the developers of Dream Daddy Dating Simulator are listening and aren't mad that I've butchered the name of the game multiple times, we are open to sponsorships, and you are welcome.
We will plug your sequel, which is...
in more ways than one.
Welcome to 3Play.
All right, I'm going to give you guys my hot takes.
All right.
I've got, like, a couple small ones. And then I'll see if I can, like, get you guys mad with a couple that I don't know if they're super hot takey. Games should never have built-in voice chat.
Games should never have built-in voice chat.
Yeah, I should never be able to talk to like a stranger. Like, why? Why do I want that? Why do I need that? Why do I need to hear some like 12-year-old cussing me out? I've never turned on a game's voice chat functionality and been like, yeah, I'm glad I did that. It's ridiculous.
Well, that's because you're not a gamer.
That's true. I'm not a gamer.
I do think in today's day and age, it feels more like competitive voice chat is a thing where, and I've played a little bit of Valorant, right? And Valorant can be a game that I've noticed where people generally just want to win together. So some of that toxicity I think gets drained out, but there's still the possibility for it, right? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm split on that one. I love voice chat for having, being able to talk to your friends while you're playing.
Yes.
I think if you are playing competitively, sometimes it's necessary, right? But also if you're playing competitively, maybe you have a team you already play with. So
yeah,
I don't know either way on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you're like at a point where you're like, I want to win, then you like public voice chat isn't really going to solve that problem.
In general, I 100% agree with you. There are a couple of instances where I've not found that to be true, but those would be exceptions, not the rule, I think.
Sure.
So one experience that I really, really enjoyed was there's a game for VR called Rec Room. And in the game, there wasn't any there was voice chat, but it's all proximity based. So anyone around you could hear you, and as you walked away from them, it would get lower. And it was the way I like to describe the game is like you walk into the Y, and then there's a bunch of people there, and you're like, "Hey, who wants to go play this game?" And some people would be like, "Nah, I don't want to play that," and some people would be like, "Yeah, I'll go play that with you." And you go and you play this game, and you chat for a while, and you like whatever, and you throw a frisbee back and forth.
I think
that's fun.
I think the most recent Grand Theft Auto also uses in-game voice chat quite a bit if you're playing online.
Like a proximity thing.
Yeah, and also my most fun experiences with Among Us has been playing with proximity chat that isn't native to the game, right?
Yes, and again, isn't this like public thing? I guess that's sort of my clarifier. Is like we were playing with like a group of private friends.
I would not want to play Among Us with strangers and voice chat. You are correct about that.
So now, I get that my hot take there is sort of dependent on the community because like Brean, you gave a good example of like this game that it's part of the function of the game with like randos and like that's great.
Yeah. No, I will say so what happened in that game is they created an update where you no longer auto entered proximity voice chat and you would then join groups and like set up these groups and stuff for your voice chat, and then you'd walk into a room and say like, "Hey, who wants to play this?" And the majority of people would be in their own voice chat and wouldn't hear.
They wouldn't hear you.
And it in my opinion like ruined the community of the game because like then it's like I walk in there and I don't know anyone else who has VR, and it's like now I have no friends to play with, and it's like great, now I'm gonna go play with randos who won't talk to me. And it's like, so it just kind of like ruined the game a bit for me. So, but I know that isn't the usual, right? That's not your usual experience in a game. Normally, you don't want to do that. The other thing I will say is you miss out on some really funny stories if you pull out voice chat. For example, I play an MMO, Dungeons and Dragons online, and it's all co-op. You all play together. There is a PvP in the game, but nobody really plays it. And it's only like specific areas. So everybody's on the same team trying to get through a mission. And me and my brother were playing, trying to get through this set of quests. Jumped on a team because it's harder. It was too hard to do with just two people. And we got to listen in to this conversation had to have been like a 40-year-old man and clearly like a 14 or 15-year-old child, where the child was having overheating problems with their computer, and the 40-year-old man was trying to discuss with this child, well, here's how you take apart your computer and fix this overheating problem, and you have to go out and buy this part, and like it was the most hilarious conversation because the 40-year-old man, for some reason, didn't have the social aptitude to understand that a 14-year-old is probably not going to have the knowledge to do this, and likely does not have the money or resources in order to purchase the parts. And it was just this huge disconnect. And it was one of the funniest voice chat moments I have ever heard. And I absolutely loved it.
Brean's point is that we should keep voice chat because it is funny when people communicate poorly on voice chat.
Yes, you don't get this experience of, I'm going to turn off my voice chat and just listen to the ridiculousness that happens in voice chat.
Neither of you have swayed me. My more controversial topic or idea is, and I have enjoyed some of this genre, like there are games in this genre that I have really enjoyed. But I think it's easy for me to say that JRPGs are tedious. They are just like, they are generally tedious slogs. That they are bloated. It's just like, I am not old, but I think I'm old enough to sort of recognize like when I'm having fun and when it's like, this isn't worth it. I don't need to do this. I don't have to spend this time. I don't even know. I mean, I could just say anything and it would be
walking
like
around
JRPG.
in a circle fighting something repeatedly.
Yeah, or like loading pallets at a dockyard, or like jumping rope 100 times in a row, or impressing the nobles, or
these are all Final Fantasy IX references. Sounds like you just don't like Final Fantasy IX.
No, one of them was Shenmue. Do you load dock stuff?
Oh yeah,
in Final Fantasy IX?
Shenmue. Is Shenmue a JRPG? Would you classify Shenmue as a JRPG?
I don't know. It just sounds tedious.
He doesn't even know. How can I take you seriously?
I actually don't know. Right, like I enjoyed Chrono Trigger a lot in my childhood. But I would also go back and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is so freaking tedious, right? And like, Jordan, you even said in an episode that like all re-releases of Final Fantasy VII, like the original, not the remake, right? The original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Whenever they re-release it now, it comes with a built-in speed-up function. Because it takes so damn long to do anything. So maybe it's not as true for modern games, but also I think if you're looking at like, yeah, I mean, it's just...
Well, and I think voice acting speeds that up a lot, right? I think if you play a modern JRPG, your experience is a little different because the storytelling aspect has become a little more streamlined than just text that you have to read and interpret.
Man, they love telling their stories, JRPGs.
They do.
Love let me tell you this story, and I'm going to tell you about this story, and I'm going to tell you like the prequel to this story, and I'm going to tell you about this like other person who was walking down an alley and like saw something with this story that's not really important.
You're describing Tolkien right now. I hope you know.
I don't know that I am, but
you are. You just
Tough,
said,
but
I'm
fair.
going to tell you this story, and then I'm going to tell you the prequel to this story, and then I'm going to tell you the story from another person's perspective. Right?
Are you talking about like all the different books? Because like I would say like, well, Tolkien did different books for that, whereas like you could get all of that in one in like the first disc of one JRPG on the PlayStation, which has like 4 discs.
Yes.
So just
all good content.
I would no, but I'm saying it's like an issue of pacing or like an issue of just like bloat. That like there's not, if you want to say like, sure, Tolkien does all those things, but those books aren't bloated or like the pacing isn't off. It's like, well, he has like lots of different books where because he's got the Hobbit and he's got the trilogy and then he has the Silmarillion. So like all those things, yes. But like,
so one thing I will say here is that JRPGs, I think have developed as a game type from what they were. And I think that a lot of that bloat is a product of the time, because I don't think they knew how to do it better. Is honestly what I think it was. I think all the JRPGs were kind of like playing off of each other and learning a little bit from each other and one-upping each other in these little ways. And that has now developed into these much more streamlined, much more focusing on the right things. But I think looking back at what they didn't know how to, and comparing it to what they are now is problematic in that, like, they just didn't know at the time. I don't think.
Yeah, they didn't know how to make a good game. They didn't know how to make a good game, is what you're saying. So they just did what they could.
Hypocrite. What you are describing as bloat is the exact same thing you were talking about with Breath of the Wild, in that you can do anything, right? That was the appeal to me as a kid playing a JRPG, in that in this game, I can go jump rope with those kids on the street corner. While there's a meteor coming crashing towards Earth, I can spend all my time at the amusement park, right? Like,
hey, Jordan, can I ask you a quick question?
Go ahead.
Just ballpark, what's the speed run for Final Fantasy VII, like world record? Like ballpark, like 10 hours?
It's probably
20 hours?
No, I think it's probably like 20 minutes. I think it's probably less than that. Yeah, there's a massive glitch. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so like no glitch. What are you saying?
I'm just going to let Brean look it up.
Sure. But do you know what the speedrun record is for Breath of the Wild?
Well,
no glitch.
Are we judging games based on their speedrun ability?
No, you're saying that your argument was that, like, Breath of the Wild, that I'm a hypocrite because, like, Breath of the Wild has all this bloat and, like, all these things you have to do. But it's like, no. My problem with JRPGs is there's all this stuff you have to do. That, like, I have to cross-dress with Cloud, and I have to do, like... Whereas, like, with Breath of the Wild, something I think is nice about it is, like, I can go and do all that. I can cross-dress with Link, which is true. But I don't have to. I can just go right to Hyrule Castle.
6 hours and 37 minutes.
6 hours and 37 minutes. And, like, Breath of the Wild is, what, like 30 minutes or something? Like, 28 minutes. So, like, I'm not saying that, like, length is what it is or anything. I think, like, choice is what I like. And with JRPGs, you don't have a lot of choice. You're just, like, tunneled into, like, a long movie that you have to sit through. And I think what I like about Breath of the Wild is, like, I can do what I want or not.
Yeah, and I think both suffer in different ways because of the choices that they make. I think Breath of the Wild's story is meh because it doesn't have these, like, solid plot points of, like, you're going to go here, you're going to do this. I think Skyrim also has that same problem. It has a main plot, but it's just kind of meh because, like, they built it in a way that you don't have to do any of this. But as a product of that, it actually detracts from the storytelling. Whereas Final Fantasy VII and all these other ones, the main focus is the storytelling with these game aspects.
Sure.
Well,
So
and even to some extent,
hitting these story points.
Even to some extent, I think
that's a good point.
Every JRPG comes with the promise that we're going to give you some interesting characters and we're going to flesh out those characters, right? Sure. Whereas I think Breath of the Wild, right? It's Link. It's Link, except it's Link. That's all you need, right?
Well, there's other fun characters.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
There's other characters. There's other really shallow characters who are barely fleshed
Santa
out.
King.
Who's Santa King?
I don't know.
The king at the beginning, the Hyrule King.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean, we are comparing apples and oranges and getting away. You're trying to, like, deflect from, like, JRPGs just being a tedious slog by complaining about
and I'm
one
not
of the greatest games of all time.
And here's my point is that I'm not disagreeing with you in that.
Sure.
There are RPGs that I picked up and I'm like, I could care less about this character. I just need to get through this section because this character is stupid. But I think it's like it comes back to that discussion of what we've talked about with gamers, right? Do I want to play this game where I get this story told to me, or do I just want to drop into a world where I can blow crap up And in that case, I'm going to pick Just Cause 2 over Breath of the Wild.
There's no way you're taking Kyrie's heart, Jordan.
There is no way. Tough, but fair.
Tough but fair. So that's my best hot take, I think.
I think it's a pretty good one.
Yeah. I
hope that we have alienated all of you listening. I hope every single
Honestly,
one of you.
we probably have. I feel like we kind of hit everything.
Yeah. If you haven't felt alienated, please send us a message, and we will be sure the next time we do this segment of Tough But Fair, we will make sure to alienate you.
Thanks for watching or listening. If you want to talk to us, feel free to leave a comment, or you can tweet at us at 3playcast. As a brand new podcast and podcasters, we really appreciate any feedback. Talk to you next week.